Welcome to Hauntscape, where the living and the dead converge in the darkest corners of the world. I'm Isabella, and tonight we venture into one of the most terrifying places in America, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was once the epitome of modern correctional design. It was meant to reform prisoners through solitary confinement and reflection, a concept seen as revolutionary at the time. But what was meant to be a place of redemption quickly turned into a chamber of horrors, a place where human souls were broken beyond repair. This prison was designed with a singular purpose: to isolate. Prisoners were confined to their cells 23 hours a day, and they were only allowed 1 hour of exercise, but in a secluded yard where they couldn't even speak to other inmates. The isolation was absolute. For some, the silence was too much to bear. The isolation had an effect on the prisoners. Many reported hearing strange whispers, voices calling out their names from the darkness. Others saw shadowy figures moving in the corners of their vision, just out of reach. Some described feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as though the very walls of the prison were alive and watching them. But it wasn't just the walls that held terror within them. Eastern State Penitentiary has a dark history, a history soaked in blood, pain, and the haunting presence of those who suffered behind bars. Imagine being locked inside a room so small that your every movement is restricted. Imagine being stripped of all human interaction, forbidden from speaking to another soul for years on end. This was the reality for the prisoners here at Eastern State Penitentiary. The prison's design was said to encourage reflection, but in truth, it shattered the minds of its inhabitants. Many of these men, locked away in their small cells, began to lose their grip on reality. They were plagued by hallucinations, screams that came from nowhere, shadows that followed them through the halls, whispers from an invisible source. One prisoner, who had spent years in solitary, claimed he saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. The figure was tall, motionless, and shrouded in darkness. He could feel its cold, lifeless gaze, and for days afterward, he swore he felt it watching him from the corners of his cell. And it wasn't just the prisoners who experienced this eerie presence. Guards reported hearing footsteps late at night, chains dragging across the stone floors. They would often find themselves looking over their shoulders, certain they were being followed. But when they turned around, there was nothing there. But death was no stranger here. Many men died within these walls, some from illness, some from violence, others from the madness that consumed them. Eastern State Penitentiary was a place where death and despair intertwined, leaving behind the spirits of those who could not escape. One of the most infamous ghosts in the prison's history is the spirit of a former inmate who had been left in solitary for years. His death was tragic, but it was what happened afterward that terrified the guards and visitors alike. People claim they've seen his figure, tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes, wandering the halls. Some hear his faint voice calling out in the darkness as though he's searching for someone. Others report cold drafts that seem to follow them, the air turning icy whenever they pass through certain areas of the prison. Even today, Eastern State Penitentiary is considered one of the most haunted places in America. Paranormal investigators, curious souls, and thrill seekers alike have all reported eerie encounters within these walls. One investigator claimed that while walking through the prison's maze of halls, they felt a cold hand grip their shoulder. When they turned around, no one was there. In another instance, a group of visitors reported hearing chains dragging behind them, only to discover no one was even close enough to make such a sound. But perhaps the most chilling experience of all was the voice. A voice that seemed to echo through the very walls of the prison, calling out the names of those who dared to enter. Those who heard it never returned the same. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary stands as a dark monument to human suffering, a reminder of the price we pay when we push the limits of human endurance. The spirits of the past still walk its halls, trapped in a never-ending cycle of pain and regret. And as the walls continue to crumble, the whispers grow louder, waiting for the next soul to step inside. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Haunting Chronicles, where the darkness is always watching.